for Health. I'm Coach Brian Prana, and man, I'm bringing a hot one here for you today. We've got Pablo. He is a graduate aerospace engineer working at NASA. This guy's a smart guy, right? He's driven too. He's done MMA, BJJ. He loves to work out, but even more cool. Thank you for your service, Pablo. A Marine Corps with an enlistment under his belt, and he really loves to take care of himself. We were able to lose. Shoot, he's down almost 30 pounds in our work and almost 40 some with his just trying to get back into the body, the look, the feel that he wants this year. So this is a big year for him to take back his health. Welcome to the show, Pablo.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan, for having me.
Yeah. Let's talk about the results. What were they, and so far that we've been working together?
Yeah, so I mean the general results. So like, kind of like you said, I've lost about 30 or so pounds with your guidance, and before we started talking, I've lost about 17 or so. So I'll
Yep.
say I'm close to about 50 pounds down in the span of eight
Nice.
months. And we could definitely go more into detail about it, but
We
I kind
sure
of want to
will.
get your input on this
Yeah,
too. So
we sure will. So that's awesome, and I still remember the text. It was only like 2 weeks ago, so it wasn't that long. But you're like, "Hey, man,
mhm.
I had to catch my pants on the way down when I was going to go to the bathroom. They were so loose and baggy, and it
Yeah.
was
Well, I don't know if I told you,
hilarious."
but my manager was there, and if I didn't catch him, I probably would have been like a 4 year old using
Yeah,
their urinals. Like this is kind of
like
embarrassing. So
like
that,
a 4 year old.
yeah,
Yeah.
because on that note, I've lost. So for a long time, I was a 36 weight. Well, my entire life, adult life, I was like a 30 to 34
Yep.
waistline. After my initial weight gain, I was a 36, and I kind of thought that was just age related. Hey, I'm older now. Maybe just kind of
Right.
carry more weight on me, which is reasonable to think. But then it was going to a point to where I would need to go to like a 38 in a span of like a year and a half,
Mm,
and I just
mm.
didn't feel comfortable with my body. It was like this is not who I am. And going back to what you said earlier, like I'm a Marine veteran, former competitor in martial arts. I am very active to this day, and I kind of wanted to keep that as much as I could. And so just kind of see
Right.
me go from a 32, 34 waist to 38, I knew something had to change. So going back to the waistline, just being able to lose those 2 pounds in a span of like, or excuse me, those 2 inches in a span of like eight
Right.
months, it's pretty exciting because I've went to go buy some
Yep.
new pants 2 weeks ago. I'm a 34 again now, and now they're
Yeah.
actually a little bit too big. But I know I'm going to stay at this waistline because I know my thighs are going to get bigger for all the squats I do. So I'm
Oh
happy to
yeah.
stay at this waist. So I'm okay with that.
I've been a 33 ish for since high school.
Yeah.
So I
So
still
I think
have.
I'm a 33 right now, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure once I kind of cut the diet or fat loss phase, I think I'm going to get a lot more muscle mass. So I
Oh
think
yeah.
my waist would be big, but my thighs and like glutes
Oh
would be too
yeah.
big
Uh
for
huh.
the 32. So I'm like, I'm gonna stay at 34. I'm okay with this.
I like big butts. I cannot lie,
Yeah.
right? This is awesome. Now, outside of the transformation, okay, so we've lost weight, we've lost the waist size. And real quick point there, guys, if you're over 40 inches in your waistline, you are at significantly increased risk for chronic disease, illness, diabetes, blood pressure, cholesterol issues, a heart attack, a stroke, things you do not want. And if I am, this isn't to be alarming, but you need to do something ASAP if that's the issue, or your neck's over 17. Those are just physical characteristics that definitely show poor health from just a body angle and our clothing sense. Now, outside of the physical transformation melting away, what were some other results that have happened as well in our journey together?
Hmm. Well, I'd say the biggest thing, honestly, is so I've always been moving on the go. So my entire life, up until recently, I've always been running from one task to the other. So I never was big onto like cooking for myself. And I know you kind of pestered me about it at the beginning, and I was kind of really against
Uh,
cooking for myself. I was
I
like,
was planting
I don't do that.
seeds. I was just planting
Uh,
seeds.
so honestly, that's probably the biggest takeaway, just being able to prep my own meals. And the bigger thing is not realizing how easy it can be. So like before, the times I
Right.
would cook historically, it would be a whole like let's make a good dinner for myself, and it's like a 2 hour adventure into it, and you have to do like
Right.
another half an hour dishwashing.
Hmm.
The strategy you gave me made me able to meal prep so quickly and so simply. Really, I could quickly make 4 days worth of food in about 2 hours time, and that could get
Right.
me, going for the next 4 days.
Right.
Another thing that really did help me too is I was overly reliant on processed foods or just like snack
Yep.
foods or like quick protein
Yep.
bars, quick protein powders, which I know they do have the use case
Beef
here and
jerky
there.
stick.
Beef jerky stick. But I think just being able to kind of go off of what you were kind of guiding me to do, I've managed to kind of taper out off of those, food, which I'm not saying they're not bad for you, but it's just a lot easier for you to cook for yourself. And I'm not as dependent on buying like 14 beef sticks and then, rationing them out for 2 weeks. It's like, I don't even
Right.
need to eat that anymore. I could just eat the meals that, we kind of designed together. And that's
Right.
more than enough of what I need for my dietary requirements.
Exactly. Now, with the convenience thing, you were doing basically just explain to everyone is like a factor like type dish that was made by a local provider, a food service provider, and it had macros on it and calories and all that stuff. And so we looked at all the numbers on it. We looked at the cost expense of it, how much of it was actual real you paying for convenience of that service as well. Because you guys, if the thing's 500 calories and you're paying $15 or something, that's not a good return on your money. Unless it is a time thing, then okay. But then we really have to pay attention to the nutrition labels and make sure that we're getting the ones that are ideal for us. But as I've shared with you and anyone, is that healthy people generally prepare their own foods and are in control of it so that they have final say of how they prepare their meal and what goes in their body. And then you are literally in control. So, as I said, now, what were some of the uniqueness of your situation? So you're in school, we're working, we've got some roommates because you're on campus and such,
Mhm.
and at the workplace and such. What were some of the unique things that we had to juggle around and just plan a little bit better than what you may have been used to doing
Mhm.
otherwise?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the first thing that comes to mind is just being able to be very flexible on changing schedules. I know
Yeah.
since early on we talked, I made a mention of, hey, I'm going to be in Alabama at NASA for this set amount of weeks. And then for 3 weeks, I'm going to be in Texas to visit my family. And then
Right.
another 3 weeks. Within that, I'm going to go to LA to then start finish off my graduate education. So I think just being able to be modular with the day to day. Like
Right.
it's awesome to have a fixed schedule and like have a routine that lasts for years. But as we may know, life doesn't always go like that. You have to kind of
Well,
be like in the military. They said life on a swivel. You want to make sure you're kind of being able to switch things around. So I
yeah,
think just
love
being
that.
able to kind of do that to accommodate. Hey, this week I have to be in LA now for like the next few months, and then this would be my new schedule, and it's gonna be a lot more sitting down as opposed to when I was in Alabama. Hey, I have more time to hang out with my roommates, go run with them, go climb with them. So just having those
Right.
flexible knobs, a good term when it comes to like dietary, I guess regulate like ways to kind of affect my diet or how I eat. That's probably the most important thing. With that, I could easily just adjust my caloric intake for those changing activities. So then, hey, make sure I maintain or in my case lose weight, right? Because our goal
Right.
was to lose as much as weight we can before we decide to kind of stabilize. So
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that probably was the most helpful in how you kind of came into play this summer.
Yeah, definitely. And so listen in, guys. He traveled to three different places doing three different main objectives: work, school, postgraduate school. And work isn't the easiest thing, right? If you're a rocket scientist, you're
Mm-hmm.
crunching numbers, and your brain's doing a little extra, doing a couple more laps than most people do, in a sense. And then family, so wildly different circumstances and situations, and food availability, the places where you're able to prepare food or grocery shop, or the traveling and all these things. We were able to figure out better ways to do that. Now, in the past, what were some of the things that you tried before that unfortunately didn't work, or we would have never worked together?
Mm-hmm. I think the things I've tried in the past had some success, and I would say more limited success. So before we started speaking, I would do a big meal prep. So I would go on the Factor, the actual Factor.com meals, and those
Yep.
did help. But I think my only strategy before we started kind of talking more about the nutrition was if I want to kind of stay fit, I need to kind of really push my body to like the limit, right? So
Right.
going back
work
to my
out.
military training and competing in martial arts, I always fell back and, hey, I'm okay being chubby right now, or like maybe thicker. Maybe I'm okay with being a little fuller. But all I have to do is go on this like 6 month journey and like being the best martial artist. And then that would make me fit, right? By me doing that, I
Right.
would get really toned, very ripped and everything. But it's not really the solution we wanted, right? Because it was heavily dependent on, hey, I need to be doing these activities to stay fit.
Right.
Once I stop these
Hours worth.
activities, it's just gonna fall apart, right?
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
I'm still relatively young, but the reality is I have a lot more responsibilities in my life. It's no longer
Right.
about can I be the best grappler ever. It's like, hey, no, I need to learn how to balance my full time job with graduate school with other obligations, and that's when like that strategy that I had doesn't work anymore. And that's where I think having a nutritional guideline to like be adjustable to the days you kind of have ahead of you in terms of like nutrition intake. That's key, right? So you're essentially teaching me how to fish, right? Before I
Yep.
kind of had this generic idea. This if I want to stay fit, I have to kind of do these like black box things. I things I don't really understand how they function, but I know if I do it this way, it works. But how it worked by us talking to each other was, hey, now we know the nutritional guidelines, the nutritional not pedestals, the nutritional pillars, to where, hey, now I know how to adjust my caloric intake to fulfill the needs I need to kind of have to get the body requirements I want to keep. So
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you were macro dialed in. Now, you having a little more analytical brain, we leveraged that. And you had already done some calorie tracking. Not everyone calorie tracks, but for our situation, you did. And holy cow, you were down to the 1 gram almost always.
yeah,
This is, dude, you like pulling off like slivers of food from the scale to make sure it's just dialed
yes.
in. And that
That's my
was,
numerical. That's just my
yes,
mathematical engineering
exactly.
mind. And I think to your viewers, you don't necessarily have to go as in depth as I can. That's just how I operate. I
Exactly.
think one thing people should know is like you could kind of use the rule of thumb method as opposed to me. As I know, I need to know the actual numerical,
Right.
absolute truth. Like, hey, that's
Right.
not how you have to operate to kind of be successful with Brian's program.
Yeah. And it just fits your background, right? Being a rocket scientist, you're a little more on the details than other people. And so
Right.
just if you're listening in, there's lots of ways to go about losing weight. We're going it in the most sustainable way for Pablo. He enjoys tracking, and we are ultimately going to work away from tracking for long-term success
Hmm.
because right now in your life you've got full-time career, you've got full-time school, but it's going to transition into full-time life. You'll get relationships and a family. Most humans do that, right? And I remember back in the day, it's like, how far am I going to run today was the hardest question. And that goes back to your military and your martial arts background days of just, I'm just going to outwork whatever. And it
Hmm.
didn't matter what you ate. But now it's like, shoot, I need to study more. Or in my case, I
Right.
probably should record another podcast. This is my third podcast today that I have done to publish and such. So it ends up being this process of which we have to prioritize, and we can't just relying on exercise or movement to be the saving grace. Yes, it's part of the solution, but
Hmm.
the nutrition is a huge, huge piece of this. Now, what was it? Your motivation to get back in shape and to do it in a different way. Everyone always is interested in what drives people.
Hmm. Well, honestly, I think it was just more my overall. I think I miss being as active as I used to be. So
Oh
we
yeah.
talked about this midway through our time working together. So when I was a little bit heavier, when I was like 255, I noticed the things that I was able to do when I was slimmer. Like I jumped up the stairs or like climbed the stairs really fast, play around with my baby nephews. I felt that was I took it for granted. Like I was a lot
Right.
more mobile back then. I was like, oh, like I would go to my 5 year old nephew. You want to go play in trampoline? Let's go do it. Like it was so
Yep.
easier because I was like two. I was about the same weight I am now, funny enough, but I took that for granted. So whenever I got heavier, I realized I couldn't do those things anymore. I realized that hey,
Yep.
after like getting up the stairs now is a hassle. Playing
Right.
with my nephew after a certain point, I'll get kind of winded just because I just was so cumbersome. Like literally, I
Mhm.
remember one time I think we were in Thanksgiving, maybe last year or 2 years ago. We were just like playing around, and literally my belly, I couldn't like scrunch in like I used to play with them. And I was like, I don't like this like added weight on me. And I think I at first associated with being older. Like, hey, I'm just getting older is fine. But then, I kept on noticing the weight kept on coming on. Like, hey,
Yeah.
this at this rate, going back to my numerical mind, it's like, every single time I weighed myself, the trend was going upwards. Like, when is the trend going to
Right.
stop?
Like, when's
Is the
300
trend
going to hit here? Jeez. Right.
exactly? And I want to stop that. Not so much for
Right.
obviously health is important, but for me, it's more so I want to return to the person I was before. I want to be
Yes.
that, quick on, I could turn corners really fast. I could jump in a trampoline with whatever. I could keep up with like my 5 and 6 year old nephews. And I think even looking back now, when I was in Texas just, a couple of days ago, funny enough, my nephew, he wants to go on this like slide. What do you call it? This like popular slide venue. So imagine like a warehouse, a bunch of like slides,
Yeah,
and you
yeah, yeah, yeah.
saw a bunch of kids going on there, maybe a few teenagers, and the weight limit was like 270 pounds. So the average adult could do it.
Right.
And I noticed that I was the only adult actually on the slides with these kids because I could physically do it. So, oh wow, like
Right.
here I am with the body kind of wanted back. I can now spend time with my nephews and going down the
Yeah.
slide and having that fun with
Family
how I used to. Really, that's really what kind of made me start to get back on the weight loss journey. And I'll be honest, there's a lot of clothing I used to like. I used to love wearing, and I can now
Oh
wear
yeah,
again.
the
Like,
leather
oh,
jacket,
that's
right?
there was a for my undergrad, to add to that. Whenever I graduated my undergraduate degree for mechanical engineering, I bought myself like a really nice leather jacket. And shortly after I graduated, I started kind of putting on weight, and I couldn't. It started with I could put it on and get away with it, but then 6 months ago, I literally could not zip the zipper, and my belly was sticking out. So this is kind of like
Yeah.
embarrassing. So sure enough, after this summer ended, I came back here to LA. And I'm putting on the jacket, and it zips all the way up. Like, oh, perfect! Like I get to wear this a
Yeah,
lot more.
buddy.
So,
Yeah, buddy.
so
I also wanted to throw out a text. You literally sent me a text at one point. You said, "Man, I feel springy. I feel lighter,
yeah,
more
yeah.
agile," and yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that kind of goes up to being that spending time with my nephews and just like
Right.
right now I'm prioritizing my education and
Of
getting all the
course,
other
different seasons of life.
life things, different seasons.
Yeah,
But once I'm done with all these things, I would like to kind of compete again, and I want to have
yeah.
the body to
Right.
immediately I could with minimal preparation I could get back in there. Not
Right. I tell you,
I
dude,
couldn't.
I'm
Yeah.
43, man. My son challenged me to a marathon. I'm in full prep. I got 33 days left. And I'm been able to remain fit, healthy. I didn't run so much in my 30s because of priority of raising 4 young kids, a
Hmm.
family with everything else. So I didn't run as much, but I've been able in the last couple months to just ramp up a significant amount of activity. I've got a desk bike that I think I've probably sent a picture of once or three times, but I've biked 10,000 minutes on that since January,
Jeez.
February or so. While I'm working because that ends up being a part of this season, but I was able to pick it up and get
Hmm.
right back into flow and start training again and be able to. I feel ready. Am I as ready as the 25-year-old brain in my head wants me to go fast? Unfortunately, not, but that's okay. And I'm gonna go have a fun time. I'm gonna participate and with my son, and that's even
Hmm.
more important than how fast I do or don't run. But I better run under 4 hours. That is definitely a very strong line in the sand that I need to go faster than. So, all right. With this, what about the approach worked? Like, and let's talk about how many questions you asked me
Yeah.
throughout the whole time too. If you could
Oh,
quantify how many questions you probably asked me, how many you think it would have
quite
been?
a bit. I think and I was asking a bunch of like random,
You asked me all sorts of questions. It was great.
very specific questions. Like,
Very,
why is the
I
gram of protein more important than the gram of carbs? And
right.
when should I eat one or the other? Yeah, I was
Yeah,
definitely
it
trying to
was
dissect
awesome.
every single thing.
If
But I
you're
think the
listening
takeaway,
in, just so you know, he asked me so many questions. I regretted not recording our coaching conversations and using them as podcast episode. It's like, dang it, that would have been a really good episode. Like,
yeah,
hey,
I
this
think it
is
was.
how.
I think one of the ones
Go ahead.
that's going not to deviate from what you just asked me just now, but I think one of the questions was like, why is should I factor in the calorie macro, or sorry, the carb macro over the protein macro if I'm gonna run first. It was something like timing with like eating or
Yeah.
something like that. I forget. but to answer your question about what made it work, I think what the takeaway in this is you kind of not spoon fed it, but you made every single step that was needed to be taken very simple. The way you
Yeah.
explained it and the resources you have is pretty good, pretty top notch. For
Thank you.
example, the first thing that comes to mind, especially when you got me into meal prepping, was you had like these 3 sheets of paper saying like fibrous food,
Right.
starchy
Protein,
food,
fibers,
and
carbs, starchy
protein,
carbs. Yep.
and you kind of had a list for each items and stuff. I mean,
He's
you pretty much
referring
made
to
it so like,
the what food should I eat PDF. If you're listening in and you want that PDF, just send me an email, brian@brianperana.com. I will literally just send it over and you can see exactly what he's saying. But it is simplified how to pick a step by step, build a meal that burns fat. So back to you.
mhm. Yeah, so having those food items on each list, and I think you mentioned that have like one cup of the starchy ones,
Yep.
1 cup of the fibrous one, and 1 cup of protein. Like it made it very modular, right? So like now, okay,
Yeah.
with this
We're
list,
gonna
I have
say
to
3 cups of fibrous carbs, though. Three to
oh
four cups of vegetables,
yeah.
right? Right,
Yeah,
right.
but I get about 3.
Lots
That's
of
right.
veggies. Yep.
Lots of veggies.
You're
You
good.
made it very simple, and like you kind of gave me at least the liberty to like design my own meals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before, I think what my habit when I would try to lose weight, aside from like the whole extra exercise and competing and everything, was I would follow like this black box idea. And like I guess to kind of go into engineering a little bit, black box represent what it means is like you don't understand what a system in place works. So black box is like, hey, if I put this in, I get this out. You don't know the inner workings of something. Think of like a car engine. You don't need to understand how the gears turn, but if you press the gas, you're gonna
Right.
make the engine go faster, right? So that's the black box idea. So before I would have this black box approach on how to diet down, I say, hey, I know Factor, for example, has better meals. So I don't exactly know the entire inner workings of
They literally
nutrition,
come in a
but
black box.
yeah, but the black, by me eating these Factor meals, I am gonna lose weight, which it is true. I did lose some weight, but it wasn't enough weight. And then once I realized I need to lose even more weight, so, okay, I didn't have the skills to then, okay, what additional steps do I need to take to make my weight loss, increase? So instead of kind of using these random black box approaches, we were able to actually go into the box and then like dissect the nutritional engine that is nutrition, and then from there you tune your macros, you tune your habits to then kind of get the results you want.
Yeah.
That's probably the thing that you did that I don't think a lot of people, or at least the things I've tried, have made it work, and you've made it work essentially.
Yeah. Yep. Made it work with the person in front of me, which is the coach, the art of the coach. And I've had thousands of clients practice. All right. What's the biggest challenge of getting started with actually doing this, like taking care of yourself? Back when you maybe even before you reached out, what was the big challenge? Was it reaching out? Was it you wanted to look around? Was it the cost? Was it time? Oh, it's not the right time. I'm gonna da da da.
I would say I think reaching out was the most difficult, just because.
Yeah.
Well, two reasons. The first one that comes to mind is I didn't know where to start to look. It was just like, oh,
Right.
Google nutritionist, and now you have a bunch of these
Right.
nutritionists are coming in, and that goes into my second point is once I found you, I think there was like 3 or 4 more nutritionists that I was like, hey, I'm gonna talk to them too.
Right.
And one thing that stood out for you, Brian, was the other three coaches I spoke to. They kind of going back to the whole black box approach. They didn't understand. They didn't want to hear your starting point per se. Just, hey, if you want to lose weight, follow these steps. Not realizing
Right.
like this is one coach who I talked to right after I spoke to you. Literally the next hour, I had a phone call with this person, and I told him, "Hey, this is my background. I'm a martial artist, former martial artist. I'm relatively pretty fit. I understand, athletic movements. This is my
Right.
nutrition. This is what I take for my vitamins." And he's kind of giving me this whole blanket black box approach. Of, hey, to lose weight, you must stretch like this every other day. You must lift weights like this. And I was like, in my head, I was like, dude,
Right.
like I'm powerlifting. I don't understand how push-ups could. I mean, push-ups are good. Don't get me wrong, but they don't cater to my needs, right?
Right.
And I think what you did differently is you listened to where I was at, and then you kind of designed the program around my needs, and that's probably the biggest takeaway. And for me to getting started, and once I kind of saw that, and I was like, dude, there's no question. I'm gonna give this guy who's like listening to me the chance, and then it all worked itself out.
Yeah, totally, totally. And it didn't matter if you're working out or, hey, I'm gonna go run 10 miles today. Okay, well, here's
Hmm.
what we need to do to just to do that and be able to eat more. And how many PB and J's did you start eating while you're out running and all,
Those are
right?
lifesavers now. I do eat a
I
lot of those now.
know.
And then even more so early on too, just I think having that accountability, yes, but just having that flexibility. I could message you anytime for anything that
Yeah.
comes up. I think our
Yep.
first discussion about my first 10-mile run nonstop, you were, I called you randomly. I was like, I need to call him
Yep.
real quick. And no hesitation, you picked up, and, you kind of gave me the information to,
Yep.
increase my calorie intake for this much for the day. And,
Yep.
just having that around, it was very helpful for
Yeah.
me. And
It's
it
like,
made
what's up,
my
man?
decision choosing you good. So,
How can I help? And then we figured out what you needed to do, and you're like, all right, man, I'm gonna get to it. Awesome, man.
yeah,
We'll catch you in text
exactly.
later. So it was great, great. You've been an A plus student and
I
client,
appreciate it.
and I'm excited. We're getting through the fat loss phase, and then we're going to get into a weight maintenance phase, and then that's going to quickly shift into muscle building, strength building, and such. And the tenacity, the focus, the, if you want to call it discipline or whatever, the way you're going about this is the moon is
Hmm. And
is where we can head
I,
to.
I think to add to that too, just like more so for the viewers, is like this is how I function. Like I kind of want to be this like really physical, like gifted person, whatever. But I guess you don't need to go as tough as I am. You can just be. I just want to
Right,
stay fit and like, oh great, I'm just kind of going an extra mile because that's how I operate.
right.
So
Yep, yep. He's very true. I have all across the board, from people who don't know what they're doing to dialed in and still can't quite figure it out, to marathoners to chronic illness. I've literally, at this point, it's very, very challenging to come across another situation or circumstance that I haven't already experienced with someone else and helped work through that. So that's just the sheer volume of talking with people and engaging over the last 20 years. So, well, what would you say to someone listening in that needs some advice on where to start, or like even back when you were thinking about it, it's like, what would you tell that person?
mm, I would say that I think first thing I want to say is never too late to start your weight loss journey. I think a lot of people, and I was I mentioned it already. Is I thought weight gain was associated with just age, which I'm sure there's some truth to it, but not to not to the point you're gaining more than two pant sizes. And I think
Right.
knowing it's never too late. That's probably the biggest takeaway. And then also uh, look up your resources. Look up, Google somebody or Google how to find a nutritionist, and hopefully you end up here with Brian. But do
Yeah,
your
you
research
can just
before you
reach out to
start.
Brian.
And I mean, the simple answer is reach out to Brian. But I
Yeah.
say, let's say you have no idea who we are and you never even heard of this podcast. Just do your research. And
Yep.
I will say the people that probably have the more resources out there that openly source probably have the best
Yeah.
thing in mind, which is your health, versus if you kind of keep everything behind like a sealed pay first method. I don't think that's as
Right.
beneficial as like, hey, Brian has a lot of open information that you can start
Right.
accessing through him, and then once you want him to work with you, that's when you kind of start talking about prices and stuff. But I think it's having you get to know Brian first before you get to kind of hire him. I think is a big plus.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I just recorded episode 153 of the Driven for Health podcast in September, and if I reach my goal of releasing one a day until my anniversary, I'll have about 180 episodes done in
Nice.
a year, which is pretty significant. I've had thousands of minutes talking. So there's a lot of information on this podcast and on my socials and out and about in the world. So I hope that people find the information and it's relevant, and that we can, at the very least, you can take the information, use it, and get healthier. And at the very most, get some action. So many people I work with already know what to do and they're not doing it. They need some level of support, accountability to push through whatever the challenges were or the accepted state of being that they are in. And it just doesn't have to be true. You do not have to gain weight just because you're getting older. It potentially could be a more challenging because life changes. Muscle mass is always slowly starting to dwindle. We need to change our behaviors to match pace with where we're at, what we're doing, and be able to be long term successful, which is very true. And in Pablo's case, he noticed the trend and did not like where it was. He just didn't want to be, a lack of better term, a fat scientist, right? It's just not
Hmm.
fun, not exciting, and to feel your body in a way that's not for, especially for you, identify with being athletic that's a big strain on your confidence, on your energy, and your ability to do really cool things in this life. So I
Hmm.
appreciate that you showed up on my doorstep, that we are
Yeah,
working together. You've been an awesome client. So if you're listening in and you want to, but if you feel like you're like Pablo or want to be like Pablo, then reach out and let's do something and figure out the next step. So that is going to be it for this episode of Driven for Health. Thank you so much for making it easy for me, Pablo, and we will keep melting away and rechanging your body from the inside out. Over and out.
perfect.
Later, Gators. Bye bye.
See ya.